My name is Peter. I'm 63 years old, and for most of my life I believed Christmas was the one day that could fix anything, no matter how broken things felt. But this Christmas, I learned that even the warmest day of the year can turn cold in a single moment. It started 3 days before Christmas. The sky was grey, and snowflakes drifted past my window like slow-moving feathers. My small house smelled of fresh pie, apple and cinnamon, Mary's favourite. I had just finished wrapping gifts for my son Daniel, his wife Grace, and my 2 grandkids, Ben and Lila. I took my time tying each ribbon. I wanted everything to be perfect. Mary used to say, "The love you put in a gift matters more than the gift itself." I smiled, remembering that, though the smile didn't stay long. 5 years had passed since she left, and the house still felt empty without her humming in the kitchen. By noon I decided to call Daniel, just to ask what time I should come over. I picked up my old phone, pressed his number and waited. It rang 3 times before he answered. "Hey, Dad," he said. His voice sounded tired, not cheerful like usual. "Hi, son," I replied, trying to sound bright. "I was just checking when you'd like me to come on Christmas Day. I've got gifts and a pie ready." There was silence for a moment. Then I heard him sigh. "Dad, about that." Something in his tone made my chest tighten. He spoke slowly, like every word was heavy. "Grace thinks it might be better if you stayed home this year. It's going to be crowded. Her parents are coming and—" He stopped mid-sentence. For a second I didn't understand. I just stared at the little tree I had decorated that morning, the blinking lights reflecting in my eyes. "You mean you don't want me to come?" I asked softly. He hesitated. "It's not like that, Dad. We just thought maybe next year." I felt something break inside, but I didn't want him to hear it, so I forced a smile he couldn't see and said, "That's all right, son. You don't have to explain. You have your family. I understand." He paused again, maybe sensing the sadness in my voice. "You sure?" "Yes," I said gently. "Have a wonderful Christmas. Give my love to the kids." When I hung up, the house was silent. So silent I could hear the ticking of the wall clock and the faint hum of the refrigerator. I stood there for a long time, phone still in my hand, staring at the lights on the small Christmas tree. The blinking red bulb looked like it was beating, like a slow, tired heart. I packed away the gifts I had wrapped. The pie stayed on the table, untouched. Outside, snow was falling thick and heavy, but I didn't feel its beauty anymore. I took my coat, stepped outside and sat in my old blue car for a while, just listening to the sound of the engine hum. I smiled, not because I was happy, but because I didn't want to cry. That night, I drove home in the dark, headlights cutting through the white road ahead. My hands gripped the wheel tighter than usual. Every mile felt longer, emptier. When I finally parked in front of my house, I looked at the seat beside me, the seat where Mary once sat, singing softly on Christmas drives. Now, it was just me. And as I walked into my lonely house, I whispered under my breath, "Merry Christmas, Peter." I tried to laugh at the sound of my own voice, but it didn't sound like laughter. It sounded like goodbye. The next morning, the world outside was white. Snow covered everything, the trees, the fences, even the path that led to my front door. It was beautiful, the kind of morning Mary used to love. She would stand by the window, coffee in hand, and say, "Look, Peter, the world looks clean again." I made coffee too, just for the smell of it. I poured 2 cups out of habit, one for me, one for her, then caught myself and poured the second one back into the pot. I smiled a little, though my chest felt heavy. I tried to keep myself busy. I swept the floor, polished the old table, and fixed a loose handle on the cabinet. It's strange how silence can make even the smallest sounds feel loud. Every creak of the floorboards echoed like a whisper, reminding me I was alone. By noon, I opened the closet and took out the red shirt I had ironed the day before, the one I planned to wear at Daniel's house. It still smelled faintly of the lavender soap I used. I held it for a moment, then folded it back neatly and placed it on the chair. I wouldn't need it now. Lunch was just soup and bread. I ate slowly, trying to fill the emptiness that food couldn't touch. I thought of Ben and Lila, how Lila used to run to me shouting, "Grandpa's here!" every Christmas morning. I could almost hear her voice echoing in the house. After lunch, I sat by the window and watched the snow fall. A few children from the neighborhood were building a snowman outside, laughing so loud that I couldn't help but smile. That sound, laughter, it has a way of making even the saddest heart feel a little warmer. I looked toward the empty chair across from me and whispered, "Seems our boy doesn't need us this year, Mary." The room felt still, as if it were listening. I could almost hear her gentle reply in my head, the way she'd always say, "He'll come around, Peter, just give him time." That night I cooked dinner, though I barely ate. I placed a small candle beside Mary's photo on the table. Her picture was taken the year before she passed, her smile soft, her eyes kind. I stared at it and said quietly, "I hope Daniel's happy. That's what matters." The candlelight flickered, and for a second it looked like she was smiling back at me. I didn't cry. I wanted to, but I didn't. I'd learned long ago that tears don't bring anyone back. They just make the heart ache longer. So I sat there, just me, the candle, and her picture. The clock ticked on the wall. The wind outside brushed against the windows like gentle knocks. The world was quiet, painfully quiet, but somehow I stayed calm. When the candle burned low, I said a short prayer. Not for myself, but for Daniel. I prayed that his Christmas would be full of laughter and love, the kind I once had with Mary. Then I turned off the lights, climbed into bed, and let the silence wrap around me. For the first time in years, Christmas Eve was coming, and I had no one waiting for me. I've never been much of a city man. The noise, the rush, the endless lights, it all feels too fast for me. But my son Daniel has lived there for almost 10 years now. He built his life there. A good job, a nice house, a beautiful wife, 2 little angels for kids. I was proud of him, still am, but lately I've felt the distance between us grow wider than miles. It's like we live in 2 different worlds. Mine smells of sawdust, old books and coffee. His smells of perfume, new cars and city rain. I remember when he first brought Grace home to meet me and Mary. She was polite, kind even, but I could tell, the way she looked around my small house, the way she smiled tightly when she saw my worn-out furniture. She came from a world where everything was shiny. I never blamed her for that. People can't help where they come from. But ever since Mary passed, things changed. I stopped visiting as often. Grace would still send me polite texts on birthdays and holidays, but Daniel, he got quieter. Now, after that phone call, I couldn't stop thinking about what their Christmas would look like without me. I imagined the long table, full of food and laughter. Grace's parents would be there, dressed nicely, talking about their trips and business. Daniel would smile, though I know that kind of smile, the one that hides guilt behind politeness. I could almost hear Grace's voice saying, "I'm glad it's peaceful this year." Peaceful without me. Still, I couldn't find it in my heart to be angry. I knew Daniel loved me. He just didn't know how to show it anymore. Sometimes, life and pride make people forget the hands that raised them. That night I picked up my phone and typed a short message. "Merry Christmas, son. Take care of the family. That's all that matters." I read it 3 times before pressing send. Then I placed the phone on the table and stared at it, waiting for a reply. Nothing came. I leaned back in my chair and looked around my quiet home. The tree still stood in the corner, lights blinking softly. It looked cheerful, too cheerful for how I felt. Outside, the snow was falling again, thick and soft. I stepped out onto the porch, wrapped my coat tighter, and breathed in the cold air. The world looked peaceful in a way the city never could be. I thought about Daniel then, sitting in his warm house surrounded by family, maybe laughing with his kids. I hoped he was happy. Truly I did. But deep inside, there was an ache, a small, sharp one that wouldn't go away. It wasn't anger. It was something quieter, heavier, the kind of hurt you can't really explain to anyone. I whispered into the night, "I miss you, son." The snow fell harder, covering my footsteps. I stood there until my fingers went numb, then went back inside. Before going to bed, I checked my phone again. Still no message, just that one text I'd sent sitting alone in my kitchen. I turned off the light, lay down, and told myself I was fine. But I wasn't. Sometimes silence can be louder than any words. And that night, the silence of the city I wasn't welcome in reached all the way to my small, quiet house. Christmas night came quietly. The world outside was white, every roof, every road, every branch dressed in snow. My little house looked like something from a postcard, but inside, it was just me and the sound of the clock ticking. I had cooked a small dinner even though I wasn't hungry, just some potatoes and stew, the kind Mary used to make. I poured a small cup of tea, set it beside her photo, and said softly, "Merry Christmas, love." It was strange how I could almost feel her near me that night. Maybe it was the candlelight flickering, or maybe it was just my mind playing tricks. But for the first time in days, I didn't feel angry or sad, just tired. I sat on the couch and watched the lights on the tree blink on and off. I thought about Daniel, about Ben and Lila. I could picture them opening their gifts, laughter filling the room. I hoped Daniel liked the message I sent. Maybe he'd see it later after the party. Maybe he'd smile and think of me. Outside, the snow started falling faster. The wind pressed against the windows with soft, hollow knocks. The lights flickered once, then twice, and went out. The whole house went dark. For a moment, I just sat there, letting my eyes adjust. Then I lit another candle. The small flame painted the walls gold, and in that warm light, I saw the reflection of Mary's picture again. She looked calm, peaceful. I pulled the blanket around my shoulders and whispered, "It's just a bit of snow. It'll pass." What I didn't know was that far away in the city, my son had just heard something that made his heart stop. A neighbor had told him about a small car found by the frozen bridge outside town, an old blue car, half buried in snow, lights still faintly glowing. Daniel knew right away whose car it was. While I sat quietly in my little living room, he was already trying to call me. Once, twice, 10 times. My phone sat on the table beside the candle, screen lighting up again and again, but I didn't hear it. The wind outside was too strong, and the sound was swallowed by the storm. I sipped my tea, unaware that somewhere out there my son was shouting my name into a phone that kept ringing into silence. By the time the clock struck midnight, there were already 18 missed calls. I remember looking out the window one last time that night. The world looked calm, soft white snow covering every sign of life. I whispered a quiet prayer for my family, asking God to watch over them. Then I leaned back on the couch, wrapped the blanket tighter and closed my eyes. I wasn't afraid. I wasn't angry. I just felt ready to rest. Outside, the snow kept falling. Inside, the candle burned low, its small flame still dancing beside Mary's picture. And somewhere far away, my son's phone kept glowing in the dark, 18 missed calls, unanswered. Morning came quietly. I don't know what woke me. Maybe the light peeking through the curtains, maybe the stillness of the room. The storm had passed. The air was cold but calm. The candle had burned low through the night, its wax pooling near Mary's picture. I stared at her smile for a long time and thought she would have known what to say to Daniel. She always knew how to make hard things gentle. My hands were a little shaky as I reached for my pen. There were things I needed to say, things I hadn't said in years, so I took a small piece of paper from the drawer and began to write. Don't be sad, son. Christmas is about love, not pride. I'm always with you. Love, Dad. I folded the note neatly and placed it on the table beside the gifts I'd wrapped. Then I covered myself with Mary's blanket, the one she made the winter before she passed. The fabric still smelled faintly of her, soap and sunshine. I looked around the little room. Everything was still. Everything was simple. And for the first time in a long time, I felt peace. Not the loud kind that comes from music or laughter, but the quiet kind that fills the heart when you know you've done your best in this life. I closed my eyes and whispered, "Merry Christmas, my family." The wind outside was gentle, brushing against the windows like a soft lullaby, and that was the last sound I remember. From here, the story no longer belongs to me. It belongs to Daniel. He told me later, or rather, he told others, what happened that morning. He had driven through the snow at dawn, panic in his chest, calling me over and over. 18 times, he said. When he reached the house, the door wasn't locked. The lights were still on, the pie untouched, the smell of cinnamon still in the air. He called out, "Dad?" No answer, just the ticking of the clock on the wall. Then he saw me sitting on the couch wrapped in the old blanket. He said I looked peaceful, as if I had fallen asleep watching the tree lights glow. He found the note on the table. When he read it, he couldn't hold back his tears. He dropped to his knees and wept. He told me later that he sat there for hours, holding my hand, whispering all the things he wished he'd said sooner. "I'm sorry, Dad," he said again and again. "I should have come for you." Outside, snow began to fall once more, softly, quietly, as if the world itself was listening. He stayed until the candle finally went out. That Christmas, Daniel learned something no one ever taught him, that love isn't measured by the gifts under a tree or the size of a house, but by the hearts that wait for you, even in silence. And though I was gone, I knew, somehow, that he finally understood. Because love doesn't die, it just finds a quieter way to stay.